Hey everyone, I got a question after my last video about how I do seamless looping. In other words, if you're going to use a whole lot of delay and reverb effects and you don't want them to get chopped off at the end of your loop, how do you actually accomplish that and do it in a live situation? In my last video, I actually used two different methods layered on top of each other. I'll go into both of those different methods. The first one is going to be able to be done by any looper. The second one is going to require you to have some specific settings. So let's go ahead and look at the first one and get into it. All right, so what's the problem that we're trying to fix? The problem is that if we use effects with a really long tail and we use the looper set up in standard mode, it's going to cut off the tail end of our effects. So let me just start a loop here and show you exactly what I'm talking about. Did you hear that? That was a big old gap in our otherwise seamless loop. So that is exactly what we're trying to avoid. There are a couple of strategies to avoid this. One is to just play whatever you're playing once beforehand so that you have the decay tail in there already. That works in some situations, but especially if you're working with kind of more chaotic effects with nonlinear reverbs. For instance, I have a sustainer pickup in this guitar and it doesn't always behave exactly the same way every time you use it. So that is kind of limiting in a lot of ways. One way that we can get around this is by using the blank loop technique. So essentially what you're doing there is you're recording, kind of counting out as many measures as you would need, but you're recording it completely silently, and then you're re-triggering the loop back in overdub mode, and overdub mode is continuous. It just keeps overdubbing over and over again, so when it restarts, it's still recording the tail end of your effect. So let me show you kind of how that works really quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. So as you can see, there's no big gap when we use that blank loop technique. If you want more information on this specific technique, Antoine Michaud has a wonderful video out there where he goes into that really in depth. I'll throw that link down in the description for those of you who are interested in that one. So we solved the problem, right? We got the loop seamless, but we may have created some additional problems in the way. Two things that I can think of. Number one, if you're in a live situation, then you're literally just sitting there and waiting, right? Like you're just sitting with dead silence unless you have a backing track or something, and the audience is just sitting there staring at you, and that can be kind of awkward. If you have a low tolerance for awkwardness in front of an audience like I do, that might not be your cup of tea. Number two is the noise level. So if you have any noise whatsoever in your rig, any 60 cycle hum, hiss, whatever, you're recording that into the loop. And so if you're using the blank loop technique, by the time you've started the second loop over, you've already doubled the amount of noise in your rig. That might not be a huge deal if you're mainly playing at home, but again, in a live situation, some of those clubs have really crazy wiring. They have a lot of electromagnetic interference going on, and so that might not work out as well. So, to not sit there with a whole bunch of downtime, one way to get around that is if your looper has different switch modes. So this Ditto X4 has this, Pigtronics Infinity has this. Most of the Boss loopers are going to have the ability to change how those foot switches actually behave. So in default mode, what we just saw, the foot switches behave in the following way. They go record, and then they play back, and then they overdub. So each iteration of the foot switch puts you into a different mode. Right now, what I have this set up in is record overdub play. So immediately after I stop recording and I set the loop length, it's already going back into overdub mode. And what this means is, again, there's no seam there. So let's go ahead and listen to this. No blank loop, as you'll see in the foot switch, just using the record overdub play mode. So as you can see, again, no seam in that loop, and we didn't have to wait at all. So now let's look at how we can combine these two modes in order to do some kind of interesting things in a live situation. Now, despite the benefits of using different looper modes, sometimes I find you have to stack both modes. So this was definitely the case in my latest video. The deal was that I am playing every note kind of just ahead of the beat. And so if I wanted to hit the looper right on time, it was going to cut off my pickup notes. So what you have to do then is start your loop early and then use the overdub switch to set the length of the loop. And then you can kind of have the tail already in there. You won't have to re-trigger anything. So let's take a look at this video so you can see what I'm talking about. Before the video even comes up, I've already triggered the initial recording phase, and I'm counting out exactly how long I want everything to be. When the video pulls up here, you can see me press the trigger a second time, and now we're in overdub mode. I got that early note by having that recording already in blank loop mode, but now I'm in overdub, and my loop length is already set because of that blank loop technique and the overdub. So this last press here is just finally disabling the overdub, not setting the loop length at all. All right, so those were the two different methods of live looping and how I stack them in live situations. If you liked that tutorial, please like and subscribe so that you can see all the future tutorials. I'll see you then.